A study of variations of line. Now, question, do I have to use pencil? I like using pen. Yes, you absolutely can go to your micron, to your ballpoint pen, to any type of instrument that you want to use. So what are we doing here? What I want to do is explore types of lines. So I'm just going to write here lines. And you could do this very playfully. You could actually, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you could see a little bit better. So we're going to start with types of lines. What types of line can you think of? So what I want to do is, you can use a ruler for this if you wish. So I am going to divide this into, let's say, 1 inch by 1 inch type of squares. So you could use a ruler to do this, or you could just draw a rectangle. And I would urge you to explore that. I'm going to divide it in half. And then I'm going to divide it in half again. And I'm going to do my first 4 major types of lines here. So I'm sure you're familiar with almost all of these. Number one is called a hatch. So let's go ahead and write it here. It's called a hatch or a parallel hatch. And how does it work? What it is you select an angle. So is it all vertical, all horizontal, or in my case, I'm going to go with diagonals. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place lines next to each other, maintaining the same angle. Now you can also play with the distance. So I'm going to slow down here a little bit. You can see how I'm just focusing and creating a nice parallel hatch. So this would be just like a kind of like an intro index into your sketchbook. You can actually come up with your own style of lines and just do kind of just an index, a swatch of all the different techniques and how you break them down so we can see how you think. Because in the end, a sketchbook is pretty much us getting to see how you think, how you feel, how you see the world, and solving it on paper. So there it is, a parallel hatch. And from here, we're going to go to a crosshatch. So what is a crosshatch? A crosshatch is basically the same thing, but I'm going to make it a little more, I'm going to make it vertical this time. So a crosshatch is basically a parallel hatch that has a second layer hatch over it, and you will see it in a second as I just draw my lines. Now you do not have to be as clean and perfectionist as I'm trying to be here. You could be a little looser. The idea of a sketchbook is there's a spectrum. Think of an engineer all the way to Jackson Pollock, pretty much. You fit anywhere in between, and only you know how to manage that pace, how to manage that, the look and the style and the organization of your pages. So here, if you need to be extra neat, take your time. If you're not, I don't mean you're not one of those neat persons. I am not either. Just a little more expressive, more jazzy, then you do that and it's totally fine. So there we are. I just filled up my square with a vertical parallel hatch. And the key is to come over it with just a minimum of degree of changing the angle. So what do I mean by that? If this is 0 degrees, so the lines that I'm drawing are 90 degrees, let's call it. 90 degrees to this bottom one here. This one is 10 degrees off of that previous angle. So I'm almost going to the same diagonal that I was doing in the first one, but as I draw it over the previous hatch, I now have these crossing hatches. And you begin to see how it creates a texture, it creates a nice look, and you'll see how this serves us extremely well in the future. As you develop more and more techniques, you will always resort to one or a variation of one of these styles. And there we have it. So we have two. This is a hatch. This is a cross hatch. We're going to do one more. Now this one's really interesting. It's called the chicken scratch, or the directional, a directional marking. So what it is this. You place the pencil down and you basically scratch the paper. So we know this one as more like this. So notice that it's directional. The key here is direction and length of the line. Also, you could be paying attention to, let's see right there. Always, you could cross them over. So you could kind of create a crosshatch of directional chicken scratches. And that begins to really expand. So you notice that, oh, wait a minute, it's kind of variations of the same thing. Or make them longer. How long can I make these? So it almost becomes like a parallel hatch, but I could break it into different directions, and it creates automatic different types of texture. Can I go in the different direction? So I've been going top to bottom. Can I go bottom to top? Can I go sideways? Can I go opposite sideways? So this is how you begin to explore the possibilities of not just your instrument, but your quality of line. And that, I think, is what I'm really focusing this entire series in. How you develop your voice. And your voice is developed through line, through composition, and through color. That's going to be the 3 weeks, by the way. We're going to develop line. Week 2, we're going to look at composition with those same lines and shapes. And then in week 3, we're going to look at color. We're going to kind of look at color a little bit throughout, but in depth. We're going to do more color exercises in week 3. So as you can see, it's all about you taking this and making it your own. Next one. Oh, let me go ahead. I like to call it chicken scratch. It makes sense right away when someone says that. And you can actually see it. Now, the other thing I forgot to mention, is you can make it into patterns. So it could be a 1, 2, 3, or a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You name it. That's how you make it yours. And notice the difference already with these to these to these, and what your creativity can begin to come up with and develop. So one more, and this one's called a scumble or scumbling. Now the key to this one is the line goes anywhere, everywhere. One way I like to kind of think of this one is letters. So it's either the letter U or the letter N or the letter S or the letter C or the letter O or the number 8, but they are all kind of going all over each other, one after the other. So if I give you a quick close-up of this, you may see it a little bit better. Because this one comes in handy really, really a lot. So most people would just stick with the kind of O's or zeros, and that works. You can make them big and then smaller. They can go in any direction, so clockwise, counterclockwise, and as they turn sort of into figure 8s, they could turn into the letter U, they could turn into the letter M, a letter W. I like that letter S or C kind of shape. That gives it that nice kind of, where is it going to go next? I don't know. So the key here becomes, give it a nice rhythm, a nice build-up, and then it's all about saturation. So notice, for example, this corner down here, I am going to they get tiny, tiny, small, and way more dense, but it is still a scumble. And as I move out of that corner, which I wanted it to be really, really dense, as I move out, I widen it. So I make it bigger, and it doesn't become as saturated or dense. So you begin to have a little bit of gradient. So you can begin to see things developing, popping up into the image as you create this texture and value. Now value, what does that mean? It gets lighter, it gets darker. That's all it is. It means it gets lighter in this area or more saturated to the point where it's really just black. Now all of these you could have done with pencil, pen, or even watercolor, color pencil, you name it. The possibilities were all, this is just the beginning. It's a matter of you choosing and then taking on it. We're going to do one more. So here I'm going to write a value scale. Notice that I'm going to just writing. Can't talk and write at the same time. Here we are. So a value scale. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch over to a ink pen. Hopefully you have one. Any ink pen works. What are those dollar pens? You know, the ones they use at the banks or anywhere like that. Works perfectly fine. Ballpoint pen or one of these micron pens, which are just nice permanent ink. And I'm going to divide it again into 4. So this one's going to be a little tricky. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to choose one of these. Which one is your favorite? So if it's a hatch, you're going to do a hatch all the way through these 4. Then you're going to leave this one with 1. And you're going to start again from the 2nd to the 3rd to the 4th. And then you're going to start on the 3rd all the way to the 4th. And then you're going to apply a 4th on the 4th square. I think I am going to go with, I love scumbling. That's going to take a while. But I'm going to do a hatch just for simplicity, just to show you. So what I do is I'm going to start with a very nice vertical hatch. And I'm going to try to do this fast. Just a little bit faster so you guys get a sense of, I could do this as an exercise. And I could also do this not just as an index card here. I could use this in artwork, any sketch pages, with all of these different lines. And trust me, there are so many more. I just picked kind of my favorites, or the most popular ones. But there are several others where it begins to break into dash and dot, or just dot, which is stippling. There's so many variations. In the end, it's all about just line, breaking the line all the way to dots, or continuous line like the scumble, and just changing the rhythm, the saturation. I'm actually going to make double the line here so I remember that that's where it breaks. Notice how it got a little bit darker already. I'm going to actually go ahead and do that here. Just darken it, so I'm adding a few extra lines, and I'm going to do it once again here. But what I want to do is I just want to take this a little bit faster and take it all the way, just as a simple hatch. And hopefully you didn't make this too big. I'm getting a feeling I might have made them a little too big. This is more than 1 inch by 1 inch. But it is a great, also, it's a great drawing exercise. It's a great practice to get used to a medium that you're not really familiar with. So if you feel you have, I'm not really comfortable with ink pens, this is the type of exercise you would want to do with that tool until you get more and more comfortable. And so you're not thinking about eyes or hair or perspective or, feathers or likeness. You're just thinking about lines. And you're thinking about what that medium, that instrument, that pen can deliver, can do. And it becomes easier. And then you take that to any type of work. So these exercises, it's kind of like push-ups when you do exercise, or jogging or fitness when you do a sport. It makes you stronger. And everything you do somehow gets easier. And it's also very meditative. If I were quiet for a few seconds, all of a sudden, you go into the zone. Okay, so I did I picked a parallel hatch. I could go into a cross hatch. You know what? I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go into a cross hatch, which might make it a little bit more visually, it's going to jump out. It'll be much easier. It is one of the most famous techniques or more popular techniques used by most artists and illustrators, the crosshatch. And you'll see it in a lot of different types of drawing, a variation of it. So obviously I'm going over section 2 or square 2 here, but I keep going because I'm adding a second layer on section 2. I want to keep them still consistent, at a consistent distance. I don't want them to get wider. Eventually they're going to have to get more saturated or closer as we get to square 3 and 4. So what we're doing here is we're building layers of lines, and immediately you notice how you could use this as light, midtones, or shadows. So opening up a sketchbook like this and having an index card where you've actually done exercises and can always refer back to, I think eventually will, maybe not today, but eventually when you open back a week, a month, a year from now and look at this again, ooh, idea. It never fails. It always opens up new ideas. Okay, so I'm going to go from square 1. I add second layer here all the way through. Now I'm going to go to square 3, and I'm going to go, here's the key. I went vertical, then I went diagonal from top right to bottom left. So this line is going to simply cross over to the other side. So now I'm going in the opposite diagonal direction at the same angle. Please let me know if I went a little too fast there or if you really are getting this. So we have a vertical line that was, call it 0 degrees or 90 degrees. We went left to right at an angle of about 10 to 15 degrees. Now I'm going on the opposite direction at the same angle, 10 to 15 degrees. So this one now has 3 layers of line. And I'm going to continue it and do the same angle, same consistency, same saturation on this side. Now, if you chose a different type of line, let's say chicken scratch or scumbling, how would you be doing this now? Same thing. You just continue applying second, third, fourth layer over the previous until you have. So notice that, okay, it gets a little darker. Now I got a little darker. Now, we have a vertical. We have diagonal this way, diagonal this way. So the obvious next step is to go extra angle in the second direction. Meaning, if I was vertical and the second layer was top right to bottom left, then I'm going to push that angle just a little more. I don't want to go horizontal yet. I have room between this angle and horizontal. So I want to pick that angle and I want to go across it. So it's almost horizontal, but not fully horizontal. And making sure you keep that angle is what's going to make it look really great. If you keep those lines parallel to each other in each individual layer, that is going to make all the difference. Oh, guess what? I need another layer because I need this to be darker. What do you think would be the next direction of line? it would be in the opposite direction at the same angle until you go horizontal, fully horizontal, which would basically be creating a grid. So it would be basically this way. And again, at that same angle, opposite direction. And now I'm really pushing this one extra layer of darkness, but I really want to enhance and highlight that, what we just did here. So when you have an ink drawing, or pencil drawing for that matter, any type of drawing, and you can develop light, medium, mid-tone, and shadow, and this could go all even darker, you know that, building up more layers of it. That's where the richness of these drawings comes in.